The news summary in a couple of minutes is followed by the business program, focusing this week on methods used to catch insider dealers at the stock exchange, the effect of the Saint-Gobain privatization deal on the French economy, and includes an interview with the chairman of Fiat.
There is an airline, the gentleness of Japan, the mystique of Malaysia, and the grace of Thailand. Cathay Pacific. The only airline that offers you the caring service and warm hospitality of not just one, but 10 Asian lands. Cathay Pacific. We do everything possible to help you arrive in better shape.
With a Honeywell computer, this manufacturer could run as smoothly as JCB. With a Honeywell computer, even this office could be as efficient as American Express Bank. Whatever the size of your business, a Honeywell computer can help you run it better. So get your business designed well, built well, Honeywell.
Many successful businesses now have HOBs, home and office banking. Before that, you had to phone the bank or get a statement to find out about your account. You had money lying around earning no interest. You had to pay all your bills by check, and once the bankers had gone home, you couldn't find out anything. But not now. If you don't have HOBs, you could be wasting your money, or your boss's money, which is even more serious. Wherever you bank, call 01200 now for details of HOBs from Bank of Scotland.
On 4 Now, we join Nicholas Owen for the news summary.
In the Philippines, President Aquino has fired her defense minister, Mr. Enrile, and the rest of her cabinet after reports of a plot to oust her. During the night, her chief of staff, General Fidel Ramos, ordered commanders to disregard orders except those issued by him and to defend the government against what he called a plan to dump Mrs. Aquino and set up a rival administration. Mrs. Aquino went on government television to announce the purge. She said and that she would break off peace talks with the communist rebels if they don't agree to a ceasefire by the end of next week. It's emerged that the British business, whose interests include the Observer newspaper, was approached to take part in a secret plan to send arms to Iran. He was told it was backed by the White House. But after a meeting in London with Iranian and Israeli officials, Mr. Rowland contacted the American State Department. And when officials there said they knew nothing of the plan, Mr. Rowland pulled out. The British government is being pressed to hold an crew of a bulk carrier was involved in a dramatic rescue operation this morning off the southwest coast of Ireland. 28 crewmen were lifted to safety from the Kowloon Bridge in gale-force winds. The British-built carrier is the sister ship to the Derbyshire, which sank without trace in mysterious circumstances in the Pacific 6 years ago. The RA has claimed responsibility for a cross-border mortar attack on a heavily guarded joint army-police base in South Armagh. Several people were injured and 50 families had to be evacuated after a number of unexploded mortar bombs could not be accounted for. Those are the headlines. The next ITN News is on ITV at 6:30.
Now look at the weather. The showery rain over much of eastern Britain this evening will slowly move away, remaining only in northeast Scotland. Clearing skies will allow a local ground frost to develop in eastern parts by dawn, with further rain in Ireland moving eastwards to reach southwest England, much of Wales and the extreme southwest of Scotland. Tomorrow the rain will move eastwards across the whole country, reaching eastern districts after midday. Dull weather with clouds sitting low on headlands will follow fog and occasional glimpses of the sun in the afternoon. After a cold start in the east, where local frost will soon lift, it'll become westerly wind across Britain. Pretty dreary, I'm afraid. Well, now, presented this week by Susanna Simons and Ian Carson.
Good evening. Tonight on the business programme we talk to one of Europe's premier industrialists, one of the most powerful car makers in the world, Giovanni Agnelli, on taking over Alfa Romeo and ambitions for a role in President Reagan's Star Wars plans. We report from inside the stock exchange's surveillance department, needing tip-offs to put the finger on insider dealers. And from Paris we report on the first stage of the French privatisation programme. The firm that made the mirrors for Louis XIV goes to the market. With commentary from Anthony Hilton, that's this week's business programme.
We start tonight with the spate of insider trading cases on both sides of the Atlantic. There have been two apparent cases in Britain in the last 2 weeks. Both were of individuals with privileged inside knowledge alleged to have bought shares in a target company shortly before a bid was announced. The case of Geoffrey Collier, who resigned as a director of Morgan Grenfell Securities, is currently being investigated by DTI inspectors. And in New York, a string of subpoenas has landed on the desks of Wall Street traders as the Securities and Exchange Commission has been widening its investigations. We reported last June on the case of Dennis Levine, who made profits of $12 million from insider trading. When caught, he sang like a canary, and as we predicted at the time, at least one other very large fish has been landed. He admitted to $50 million of insider trading profits and has paid a fine of $100 million. Earlier this year, before he was shocked by Dennis Levine, Ivan Bursky talked about insider trading on the American program Inside Business. He was asked if he had inside information, could he make money on it?
We would be very remiss if we were to act on such information, and professionals, I think, would be very unwilling to do that.
What do you think the role of inside information is in the market today?
I have no way of judging that. There was a roundtable discussion at the Securities and Exchange Commission yesterday in which I participated, which the subject was touched on. I think it was a troubling matter to professionals, to regulators, to all who want to see an orderly stock market where people can have total confidence in the system in which they're buying and selling securities. And so it's to the interest of those of us in the industry and in government that all such kinds of behaviors be eliminated to the extent possible.
Provided he knows something about inside trading, there's been a stream of information of use to the authorities in New York, and some of it of use to the authorities over here. Insider trading in this country has only been a criminal offence for 6 years, and the traders here is very much in its infancy. Colin Chapman was allowed exclusive access last week to the Stock Exchange Surveillance Department. Here's his report.
That bid that was announced on Friday, we've certainly got the information now for those 3 bargains that we were unhappy about. Yeah. It certainly looks as though this client has been dealing in the past when one of the companies involved here has been in takeover talks.
Last Thursday at the offices of the Insider Dealing Squad at the Stock Exchange. They've just had yet another tip-off.
I've made arrangements to see them in about 10 minutes' time, so I think if you cover the merchant bank, I'll cover the brokers to the company. There's that one there, and that. And we'll take the Joe and Jackie with us. Joe? We'll call in to see them now. Right. Yeah.
Only 8 people in the squad. Their job is to track down insider traders and to bring them to book. That means questioning those who may have been involved in transactions and producing evidence for the disciplinary committee of the Stock Exchange and the government inspectors at the Department of Trade. One powerful ally in their investigations last week was the New York Stock Exchange, the Securities and Exchange Commission, whose large staff gathers a vast pool of information. Details of deals gleaned from Stockwatch, a program which monitors erratic movements in shares traded in New York, is being passed daily across the Atlantic. The Americans have caught hundreds of insider traders in the last few months, some very big fish indeed, including Dennis Levine, a former managing director of Drexel Burnham Lambert, and the king of the Arbs himself, Ivan Boesky. Insider trading is international. It was at these offices in the City of London that American investigators obtained key evidence from a Swiss banker that enabled them to catch Dennis Levine. That success insider traders in this country. The confessions of Ivan Boski about his inside sources of information in the London stock market have already given the insider trading squad lots of fresh leads to follow up. Their job is made easier by the new electronic dealing systems. Their computers have instant access to all transactions over the past 6 months, and they can use the terminals to ask over 100 questions. It was here on November the 4th that the Exchange database first turned up the deal that led to the downfall of Geoffrey Collier, who's resigned from Morgan Grenfell. It's painstaking work. The team includes accountants, lawyers, stockbrokers and ex-policemen.
Over the past 3 or 4 months, we've seen a significant increase in mystery voices, we call them, where we have people who sometimes remain anonymous and other times don't, who indicate to us situations or bargains or people that we ought to look at. They feel there's something not quite right there, and we investigate it.
Sometimes investigations are routine, looking into suspicious price movements, checking out deals with merchant banks or brokers.
We'll have to go and see the bank and the broker.
It just seems that the price did rise, what, 2 weeks back?
Yeah.
It certainly looks as though there's something there.
Yeah.
Sometimes the trail is impenetrable, particularly when it's found that share purchases have been made by nominee companies based in tax havens. To break this wall of silence, they need more powers, more tip-offs.
In fact, I've got a case on my desk at the moment where we have a Isle of Man company who, over the period of 3 months, has dealt twice very close to bid announcements and has made a considerable profit, and he's been dealing in thinly traded stocks. So he has moved the price, but we just cannot get behind that company. I mean, obviously we must be suspicious. It may be totally innocent, but without us knowing who the beneficial owner of that company is, we're stuck.
Stuck they may be, but since Big Bang, Mike Felton's squad has been able to call upon the assistance of newly appointed compliance officers on the staffs of stock exchange member companies, such as here at Chase. In 90% of takeovers, prices rise by an average of a quarter in the month before the bid.
The Pilkington bargains you're printing off at the moment.
This week's biggest bid, the 1.16 billion offer by BTR for Pilkington, has not been a well-kept secret, and compliance officers right across the city are checking their own databases for signs of irregularity.
We're in contact with the stock exchange. They sometimes come on to us to ask us various share deals. We will deals to them that we think they could perhaps do more work on. And we do have to be very aware of what's going on around us. It's not just the deals that our staff are doing even. We're looking at very closely at the deals that our clients are doing, and have to be very aware of what's going on in the business world.
1400 about 163.
Some city companies are now intensifying their police. BZW telephone calls are now logged, so compliance officers can find out who called who and when. Some companies have started taping all dealing room phone conversations, and the stock exchange can call on these in investigations. But the squad still feels hamstrung. It lacks, for instance, the sweeping powers available in America.
We have the powers to talk to member firms, and this now includes banks, of course. We don't have the power to go and talk to someone who is not a member of the stock exchange. And of course, this applies to people like that.
These powers are available to 2 special government inspectors appointed to investigate the Collier case. Peter Scott QC and stockbroker Graham Kennedy are due to report any day now. Meanwhile, the stock exchange squad hopes for more tips.
I can't stress strongly enough that if anyone does have any information, then they really ought to let us know. I mean, we'll treat it in the strictest of confidence. If they wish to remain anonymous, it's up to them. Information, we'll use it.
Well, that's a report by Colin Chapman. Evidence of insider dealing, call Mike Feltham at the Stock Exchange, and this is the number, 01 588 2355. That's 01 588 2355. Well, as Colin Chapman reported, the Stock Exchange surveillance staff depend a great deal on the compliance departments at the individual member firms. This system is new, post-Big Bang, and the rules vary greatly from firm to firm. With his thoughts on the new system, here's our commentator, Anthony Hilton.
The recent insider dealing scandals in the city mean that the public has become even more sceptical about the city's ability to regulate itself. I think the new financial conglomerates should urgently agree uniform rules to cover personal share dealings by their staff, to help restore confidence. It won't be easy. Things that are banned in one firm are cheerily waved through in the house across the street. I conducted a straw poll of 14 firms last week to see how widely the rules differ. Can staff deal in new issues sponsored by your firm? I asked. 6 said yes, 3 said no, 5 said some. Employees pay cash on the nail for the shares they buy, or can they speculate within the account? 7 said yes, 7 said no. Must they hold shares for a minimum time before selling? Again, 7 said yes, 7 said no. But there was general agreement on one thing. All but one said there should be no uniform rules for all firms. That is a pity. It seems to me that this does the image of the city no good. People want to see clear-cut rules if they are to be convinced that insider dealing is a minority pastime. This would surely be helped by the imposition of a standard code of conduct to cover the share dealings of all employees in the securities industry. Otherwise, it's inviting the politicians in Westminster to dismiss self-regulation as a charade and seek to impose a rigid framework. Another kind of dealing hit the news last week when Saul Steinberg, the American financier, increased his stake in merchant bank Warburg's parent, Mercury Securities, to near 14%. Not impressed with the current management. David Scoley, Mercury's most civilized chairman, is not bowled over by Mr. Steinberg either. Personally, I doubt if Steinberg will bid for Mercury. He has a long history of taking stakes in companies, but mounts full bids very rarely. He must worry, too, that a hostile bid would prompt the best people in the bank to leave. So, is he trying to greenmail Mercury into selling him part of the business he really does want, the highly respected fund management side? That would give him a power base from which he could develop in this country, and provided he keeps the performance up to scratch, he should be able to keep on to the money. But it would not be cheap. As Keith Brown at Greenwell Montague told me, if Mr. Steinberg wanted to buy Mercury's fund management business, he'd have to pay up to half the valuation of the whole company. And provided Mercury stays calm, there's no reason why it should be forced to do a deal with Steinberg for the fund management side or any other. So I think he's planning to profit on his stake in Mercury by selling it to someone who will make an offer. Someone like Drexel Burnham Lambert, whatever its current problems. The market gossips say it is much more keen on Morgan Grenfell. It makes more sense for expansionist American brokers to buy a highly successful bank than to try to grow their own business. I would not be the least surprised in the next few months to see one or other of our leading banks find out the hard way what it's like to be on the wrong end of a takeover.
Our commentator next week is Christopher Fildes. Anthony Hilton will be back with us in a fortnight. After the break, Giovanni Agnelli, chairman of Fiat, on the takeover of Alfa Romeo, and tomorrow's launch of the privatization program in France. That's in a couple of minutes.
The Mail on Sunday with You magazine. A newspaper, not a snoozepaper.
With a Honeywell computer, this office could be as efficient as American Express Bank. With a Honeywell computer, even this distribution system could be as efficient as Littlewood's. Whatever the size of your business, a Honeywell better. So get your business designed well, built well, Honeywell.
This is a new lager. It's called Caliber. It's brewed like any other lager, hops, barley, you know, that kind of thing. But then they take all the alcohol out. This seems like a very funny thing to do, until you find out that it's brewed by Guinness. Then you have to take it seriously.
In an out-of-the-way bar, you see your best friend's wife in an intimate embrace. Do you tell him?
Of course I tell him. Hi, Charlie. Your marriage is over.
Well, look, he's my best friend.
Ex-friend?
Somebody's got to tell him.
Yes.
And it's not going to be me. Scruples, the game of moral dilemmas.
With skilled labour and generous job grants, no wonder London's moving our way. Call Eileen Bilton in Warrington Runcorn, the nation's most central location.
What would you like to drink, darling?
Oh, I'd love
2 bottles of sweet cherry, mate.
Want a jumbo?
Truckload of Castle 940s.
Cockburns.
Baby Sam.
Oh, you mean Coburns.
Something for the ladies?
Stop and some smoke and slinky corn.
What?
Could have done with the drop myself. What we need is a nice cup of quick brew.
Tetley bitter on tap.
Marvin, Bristol cream.
Looks like we've overdone it with the sherry.
Only one company in the world can boast all these liquid assets.
Say, that's wonderful. That's really nice. What is it? It's called
Allied Lions. Together, it makes a lot of sense. And dollars, and pounds, and yen, and marks, and francs, and lira.
Welcome back. Tomorrow, the immense French privatisation programme gets underway, with shares going on sale in Saint-Gobain, the state-controlled glass and building materials group. France's privatisation plans are more extensive even than Britain's. Over the next 5 years, 6 to be disposed of, netting the government some £20 billion. The Saint-Gobain sale is in many ways the most straightforward. That's why it was chosen to open the batting. But the privatisation programme as a whole has many pitfalls. Tradition of central direction of the economy. From Paris, Ian Carson reports.
When the Sun King Louis XIV started building at Versailles a palace grand enough to reflect his power in 17th century Europe, he came across a problem. Glassmaking was a monopoly in the hands of the Venetians. Rather than depend on them, Louis founded a state-owned glassmaker called Saint-Gobain. Made the original glass for the celebrated Hall of Mirrors. In the 1860s, Saint-Gobain became a private company and stayed so until nationalised by the socialists in 1982. Now it's being privatised again, but it's still #1 in glassmaking. It made 90% of the glass in La Défense, the mini Manhattan west of Paris. Years has made it the first candidate in France's ambitious privatisation programme. But it's all a huge gamble. At Saint-Gobain's La Défense headquarters last week, final preparations were being made for France's first proper privatisation. Saint-Gobain's successful sale is critical to a huge programme over 5 years. That's 2.5 times bigger than Mrs. Thatcher's programme so far. This meeting last Wednesday to coordinate publicity for the launch of the share sale tomorrow was very tense. Inevitably, things were not going quite as planned. Invitations and circulars didn't always get into the right hands. Hard-pressed executives from the advertising and PR agency pleaded for time and leeway to make up for things that had gone wrong. The Saint-Gobain sale has to be a success because it will set the tone for the whole programme. Why the company was chosen as the spearhead is clear to its chairman, Jean-Louis Befoure.
Saint-Gobain has been chosen because the privatization of Saint-Gobain was the easiest one to operate. And this is because we are profitable, because we have no strategic business, because we have, I think, a good management team and clear plans for the future.
The company has strong glass for cars and buildings. It's also big in insulation and plastics. These solid areas underpin the attraction of the share as a blue chip. Privatization should make it easier for Saint-Gobain to diversify into faster growing areas.
Have more freedom through privatization. We are going to develop the company only through its own logic and not with interference with other state policy which would have no relationship with the company, and also for to have the possibility to go to the stock market and get new funds when needed.
The Ministry of Finance wants privatization not just to pay for tax cuts. It has picked 3 sectors to start reshaping the French economy.
3 firms actually were chosen as the 3 first privatization, one being Saint-Gobain, the 2 others being Paribas and AGF, Assurance Générale de France. The aim was to have 3 privatized firms in the 3 big sectors, banking sector and insurance sector. That was the point. We've picked up 3 firms which were very well known and ready to be rather quickly privatized.
The French industrial scene is very different from Britain's. It's not just the legacy of firms nationalized by the socialists since 1982, which the new government wants to unscramble quickly. France has always been different. In France, there's a long tradition of government involvement with business. The big banks have been nationalized since the war, and the state has always played a large role in industrial planning. But now the right-wing administration is attempting a real revolution